What's up, y'all? I got a dance deal for you, Chicago. Hubbard Street Dance heats up the Harris Theater stage with its spring series of Joy next week. Now, this is some of the most dynamic, cutting-edge contemporary dance made by the world's leading choreographers right here in Chicago. I'm excited for echoes of our ancestors by Maria Torres, among other creators. But you can only catch it for 3 performances between May 17th and May 19th. Luckily, CityCast Chicago listeners can get tickets in any section for 20% off using code CityCast online or over the phone. Visit hubbardstreetdance.com for details and use code CityCast. Today on CityCast Chicago, police raid UChicago protest. Illinois Department of Children and Family Services now has its 13th director in 14 years, and we're celebrating Chicago's newest Pulitzer Prize winners. Here with me to break it all down, from the Invisible Institute, Trina Reynolds-Tyler, and City Bureau, Sarah Conway. It's Friday, May 10th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, my friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Trina, it's good to see you, my G.
Thank you for having us back.
Hey, I got the real ones for you. I got you. And Sarah, welcome back to CityCast Chicago. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Jacoby. Happy to be here.
For all of the listeners today, if you are new to our podcast, welcome. We've been here for 3 years. I don't know where you've been, but I'm glad you're here now. But every Friday, we bring in some of our friends, these voices that we really love to hear from, to talk about the biggest stories happening in their week across the city of Chicago. But before we get into those stories, earlier this week, we had a very fun conversation of the 3 mistakes you should avoid when attending one of Chicago's fabulous farmers markets. So that made me wonder, what are some of y'all's favorite things to grab at the farmers market? And Trina, I'm going to start with you. When you are headed out to a local farmers market, what is the thing that you almost always leave with?
Oh my goodness. So most certainly it will be a carton of fresh eggs, but I just got some chickens. So I know I will not be shopping for no more eggs.
Hold on. You can't just drop that and just move on. What you mean you got some chickens? What does that mean?
I have 6 young chickens living in my backyard.
I love that, G. We literally were just brainstorming the episode around what animals can you own in Chicago? Can't you own in Chicago? And people might not know that there are a lot of folks who got chickens on their property living in their backyard. So what are you going to get now? You can't get eggs no more since you the plug. So what you going to get when you go to the farmer's market?
I really like fresh apples and also there is like the cheese. I like a good cheese when I go to the farmer's market. And there's the farmer's market on 61st. There's the bean pie folks. They be there and they sell bean pies. Back in the day, we used to get the bean pies on Stony Island, hanging out the car. You know what I'm saying?
Between 79th and 72nd. But now they at the farmer's market. They didn't got organized. Sarah, what about you? Now you can get your eggs from Trina, so you ain't got to get those. You got to wait till July, but Trina, I'm going to be hitting you up too for the eggs. Sarah, what are you getting when you pull up to the farmer's market?
Trina's chickens are beautiful, I will say. They're gorgeous, the 6 of them. I go to the 61st Street Market.
Shout out Woodlawn.
Huge fan. Usually I go with my kids, and Hannah at Build now knows their order. The staff does, which is they like to get a kid's hot cocoa in an adult size cup. So they can have the little sleeve on it.
Come on.
That's what I usually get there. I garden, so I grow a lot of my vegetables and things. But sometimes I get I've gotten from one vendor at the South 61st Street Market. They have given me 12 containers of fresh strawberries that are almost about to go bad, so no one wants to buy them. So I can make jam. I like to make strawberry jam with the whole little strawberry and the simple syrup.
Y'all are a farmer's market. From what I'm hearing, you two could just set up at one of y'all cribs. Sarah gonna show up with the veggies and the jams. Trina got the eggs. Well, if you are not as lucky, but you want to check out the 61st Street Farmers Market, I've got great news for you. It opens this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and runs every Saturday until October 26th. I love going to the 61st Street Farmers Market myself, so I'm excited to get out there because, as I said earlier, I can't leave a farmers market without some strawberry jelly. Sarah, that was my pick earlier in the week. So now that I know you're making it, I'm coming to Trina for the eggs. I'm coming to you for the jelly, and I can only hope that y'all will be, give me that friend price. Give me that discount.
$5 a dozen.
And I think we got to start with what is happening at the University of Chicago. Last week, we sat down with our friend Maxwell Evans, who had been covering the encampment that at that point had been set up, which was calling for the university to acknowledge the violence taking place in Gaza, the thousands upon tens of thousands of people who have lost their life, who are currently under siege in Rafah, to cut ties with Israeli companies, as well as companies that are profiting from investments in weapons manufacturers, as well as to commit to a program of reparations from Palestine to the South Side, among other demands. And when we talked to Max last week, at that point, organizers had this clear sense that police action is imminent, from sort of the backtracking and framing of the university's police to what we had already seen take place at other institutions, not only around the country, but even over last weekend with the students at the Art Institute of Chicago, nearly 70 people being arrested. And as expected, those tensions were realized at 4 a.m. in the morning on Tuesday. Trina, let me bring you in here. Can you remind people what happened?
Oh my goodness, at 4 a.m., law enforcement came while young folks were sleeping, and they began to dismantle this encampment and yell at these young. I'm talking about, do you imagine like the shock when you wake up in the middle of the night, right? Like imagine someone coming and then yelling at you and like, but it just kind of, it sounds really terrifying.
And they've got guns, batons, they've got handcuffs, they got zip ties, they've got riot gear on, they got helmets.
Very
and
aggressive.
You're shook and awake at 4:30 in the morning, hearing people screaming. You're being yelled that your academic career is at stake, that you could be arrested right now.
They received flyers that were just like, that basically, had a series of threats around the future of their education. It's really sad because the right to protest, right, the right for, for folks to assemble, to take a stance is really important, at least in this country. That's what they say. And then, it's interesting, like this is all happening a week before alumni weekend,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, it appears that the university, they wanted to take back a piece of land that they had already taken to make space for their alumni, who I'm sure were also yelling in their ears.
I went by the University of Chicago encampment. I live very close. I went with my two daughters, who are 6 and now 8. And there was prayers. There were people resting together. There were just literally groups of students reading together. I mean, a huge, like people who are visibly Muslim, people of all races, genders, et cetera, just together in the quad, which I think is something that you see. I mean, we have one student encampment left in Chicago, which is DePaul. DePaul has not been shut down yet and has called out to alumni to help protect them against counter-protesters and police. So I think that it's a scary thing to see students across the country and in Chicago using their First Amendment rights, standing, having a very staunch anti-war viewpoint. But as we're seeing, at the University of Chicago, they got taken down by University of Chicago police, which we know are one of the if not the largest, one of the largest private police forces in the world. And the Cook County Sheriff's Office, I know like CPD, according to like Superintendent Snelling, did not want to get involved. So, watching all of these universities collaborate with police and have these student, encampments shut down, like it's definitely a historical moment to see. And it's like, wow, Chicago young people, they really show up. They really show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, something that we've seen for a long time.
Yeah, I saw a video that's been floating around of an interview with a young person who made it very clear that like 4 a.m. in the dead of night. It says very clearly, you didn't want this to be covered. You didn't want this to be seen. And I personally can't see that as anything other than a PR cowardice move, which only further emblazons is the word that I can only think of these youth protesters who say this move does nothing more than sort of bolster our claims that a militarized police response was always going to be the response, because you know nothing other than that. Police responses that we're going to see at the DNC or over the summer, the type of responses we saw in 2020, because that's all they know. It seems this is all the state has at its disposal when it comes to how to interact on the ground with protesters.
And something really quick to note, because, Sarah mentioned that UCPD is a private police force. We cannot gain access to those records by way of FOIA, right? The incidents that are happening on the University of Chicago campus, the actions that are taken by UCPD, the history of police misconduct complaints or etc. All of these things are simply not accessible to the public. And, it matters as this is happening more and more universities. One of the demands really is transparency. Where is our money going? What's happening here? And the transparency on the endowment, transparency on the police action.
I'm interested to see how they continue moving forward as, again, university and police forces have shown their hand on how they will crack down and respond. Are you self-conscious about your smile? Do you only allow yourself a closed mouth grin? Well, with Aligner experts, there's no reason for you to diminish your smile. As orthodontists, they have the privilege of witnessing the remarkable transformation of patients' smiles, which often translates into a profound boost in their confidence. Yet, there always seems to be a deterrent. I ain't got the time, I don't have the funds. Luckily, Aligner Experts is redefining convenient and accessible clear aligner solutions. With customizable treatments, transparent pricing, and their cutting-edge 3D scanners and dental monitoring technology, you can transform your smile through the convenience of your own schedule. Stop in at their West Loop or Lakeview clinic today for your complimentary smile assessment. Aligner Experts, your destination for advanced clear aligner solutions. P.S. They got another clinic on the way, so stay tuned for their Old Town location. Another story this week that maybe people didn't catch as clearly, but it affects Illinois' Department of Children and Family Services. Most folks might recognize that as DCFS. Now, we covered the tenure of their former director, Mark Smith, who at one point had been found in contempt of court at least a dozen times. Governor Pritzker and other folks in his administration said he wasn't getting the job done. And now the most recent director has been appointed by Governor Pritzker in the last couple of months, Heidi Mueller. But Trina, Heidi has now come out and sort of talked about what their platform will look like, what their plans for the office are. What's the latest here?
Yeah. So one, Heidi was really talking about the need for collaboration. She comes from the Department of Juvenile Justice, the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice. She was the director there, and in her interview with WTTW, she talks about how, in building relationships, getting to know young people who are incarcerated, she saw that many of them had been touched by DCFS, and she was really interested in dispelling some myths around children in care. And it's a really important story to take a look at, because in the story that Sarah Conway and I wrote about missing women and girls, there are a lot of, majority of the people who were missing really were children. And we read so many stories of young people who were children in care, who had been touched by the DCFS and who specifically had mental health issues. And, we know that there is some pipeline that exists between DCFS and incarceration. And if there is any one agency, it's not just Chicago Police who has the impact on young people who are missing and later murdered. It's hugely the Department of Children and Family Services.
Yeah. Interesting point that I want to ask you about, Sarah. Heidi Mueller, we're finally hearing from them May 8th. But that exact same day, reports come out about a lawsuit that talks about rampant sexual abuse inside the Illinois juvenile justice system. Trina just pointed out, this is the same system in which Heidi was the recent director of. But coming from one embattled institution into another, how do you think that impacts people's confidence on what DCFS is capable of in terms of turning things around?
Children in care is not all, but a lot of children experience abuse from other children, from adults, neglect, sexual violence, physical violence that deeply impacts them. And I think that when you go out and you talk to community members and you talk to people who've been impacted by this system, there's a deep, deep, deep distrust that I think that even, the change of a department head can't really erase or fix that. And I think even as reporters, when you're looking at systems that deal with children, there's also layers of just a lack of transparency, which, children should be protected. They are minors. They are the most vulnerable members of our society. But I think that the legacy of DCFS in Illinois, and that's to say, we've even seen our own records. We've seen DCFS workers fight for children. So it's not everyone is bad working within DCFS, but there's serious issues where you have generations of people that are like, I was sexually harmed as a child in DCFS. This happened to me. I was constantly running away from DCFS. I mean, children in care, they showed up. We believe that they make up a lot of the cases of missing young people. I think to answer your question is that as an institution, there's a lot of harm that's been done. And I would imagine that similar to when people challenge institutions like the police department, people are often looking for alternatives because they've lost a lot of faith that there can be change within it.
Yeah. I mean, listening to yet another director sort of deliver the line of, the 24,000 kids in our care should be treated like we would want our own kids to be treated. Like that line, it isn't even nails on the chalkboard anymore. It almost, you're numb to hearing that and it sort of passes by you, not only, as you said, Sarah, because how much can a director impact a system with so many sort of institutional holes in it? Again, I have been joined by Sarah Conway from City Bureau and Trina Reynolds Tyler from the Invisible Institute. And like every episode of CityCast Chicago, we end this episode with some good news. Oh, I'm loving it. I'm feeling it today. We kind of buried the lead here. I mean, both of you have referenced your amazing and so important investigation, Missing in Chicago. And earlier this week, Chicago got a lot of love from the Pulitzer Prize when we saw not only the Invisible Institute's audio team winning for You Can't See Nothing, a series that revisits a 1990 Chicago hate crime. We saw Chicago author Jonathan Eig, who won in the biography category for his book, King, A Life. We talked to the host of that podcast, Johans, on the podcast. We talked to Eig on the podcast, but also this amazing duo who we are sitting down with today won the Pulitzer Prize for local reporting for their investigation, Missing in Chicago. Congratulations again to Sarah Conway and to Trina. Trina, what was it like that moment when, you all found out this news? Like I said earlier, I know y'all don't do this for the awards recognition. The goal here was to get into the data, to get into these stories, to give these families a moment to be seen and heard once again. But what was it like to get this recognition?
I mean, I cried. It was a little ugly cry because it's just so incredible. I was at a loss for words. It's like, and I still am. It's taking me a long time to process. I'm feeling very overwhelmed, very much like I want to do this moment right. Like I want to, to engage with community in a meaningful way. There's so many people who our sources, many members of my family, they don't even know what a Pulitzer is. You know what I mean? And so it's like, to me, this is about sharing this win with communities who are most impacted and making space for them to be seen, right? Because little black girl, Southside Chicago, I certainly little Trina had no idea that this was even possible.
It's a beautiful thing.
Congratulations, G. I mean, this, for people who are not familiar, I feel like for journalists, for writers, for this is like if you're an actor, they can't say your name without saying Academy Award winner, Academy Award nominated. They can't, you a musician, if you Grammy nominated, you Grammy Award winner, they can't say your name without that. So Pulitzer Prize winning reporter Sarah Conway, how did it feel to get this news this week, this moment of celebration for your family, for the work that you've done for your community?
I remember, though, when we sat down and did the outline in City Bureau's office, which overlooks the Chicago Police Department parking lot, the headquarters parking lot, we were like, we want to bring Pulitzer energy to this story. We didn't think back then, it's something to be like, wow, that would be amazing. But it's also like, that wasn't the reason why we were doing it. We meant it in the sense like we wanted to do that level of writing and production and care that those stories have for this story, because we were like, this topic deserves it. These women deserve it. These girls deserve it. Like, their stories deserve to be honored, to have the writing really sing, to look good. It's very like, I'm like, wow, we worked really hard, but we're hoping ultimately that the Pulitzer is just an affirmation of what these families have been saying all along. Just a lot of gratitude. It's unreal. It's similar to Trina. I still feel like kind of like you're in shock from it. But I'm happy we brought home some wins for Chicago.
Come on. No, it was a win for Chicago. I mean, a win for y'all, for your collaborators, for the families that you all, like you said, that you collaborated with on with this project on. So again, I'm just so very proud of you both. I'm so grateful to have been able to sit down with y'all to talk about that important investigation. We'll provide links in the show notes, because at the time that we talked, there was still more coming out, more parts to it. So if people have been sleeping, go to our show notes where we will give you links to the full investigation, but also to that conversation. Before we get out of here, I want to make sure that we end off with some more good news. In addition to sitting down with the Pulitzer Prize winners, Sarah and Trina, I also wanted to take this time to shout out all the moms in my life. There is a long list, so I'm not going to get to all of them, but with Mother's Day coming up this weekend, I would be remiss if I didn't first say happy Mother's Day to my own. You created the space for me to move through this world, to grow into this world, to sit here now and to have conversations like this. And so all of the love, all of the gratitude is forever in the lap of my mother, but also to my aunt, Michelle, who has a birthday coming up in the next couple of months. I love you, to one of my best friends, Gabby, who is the mother of my nieces, Zion and Zuri. I love you. To Adrian, the mother of my partner, like, thank you. And to all the other moms in my life who are friends, who are family members, who are colleagues, like you, Sarah, happy Mother's Day to you. And then, to put the ball in y'all court, y'all got any moms y'all want to give some shout outs to today?
I want to give a shout out to my mom, Katie, I love you, and Kathy Ramirez, who raised an amazing son, and also my best friend, Alana, Sarah Geist, who won a Pulitzer.
Come on.
I gotta say also, I was like, I'm so proud of you, Sarah. Tanika Johnson, who many years ago said to me, she was like, it takes extra work when you're doing your art as a mom. And that gave me a lot of hope. So I want to say happy Mother's Day to Tanika, who's so amazing.
Trina, what about you? Give some love to the moms in your life.
Of course. Okay, so one, of course, my mama, Dorothy May, who came here from Memphis in the 60s and, started her life here and literally committed to birthing me. But then also shout out to my sister, Tina. Shout out to my sister, Tiara. Shout out to my second mama, Dr. Joy West, who is a obstetrician gynecologist at the Roseland Hospital. She was just on the news. She's incredible. She's spoken to so many countless young Black women about being pregnant, and they're like on, she is just such an incredible human. I'm so thankful for her. Shout out to Bettina, who edited on Missing in Chicago. She's a new mom. It is her first Mother's Day. Shout out to my auntie Dina. Thank you to all of my friends, mamas who have basically brought me in. I just went to Cleveland to watch the total solar eclipse. I stayed with my homie mama, and I had never met her before. And she treated me like I was her child. And I am eternally grateful for being taken in informally, formally by such incredible folks. So thank you.
Mm. Man, I appreciate both of y'all for sticking around to have this conversation with me, to shout out all these amazing moms, not only in our life, but to all the moms who are listening. We know CityCast Chicago got some moms who listen. They let us know. So many of my friends like, my mama love you. My mama love you. I'm like, I know she do. But we are so grateful again to the Pulitzer Prize winning reporter from Invisible Institute, Trina Reynolds Tyler. Thank you for joining us today.
Boom, 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 boom. Thank you.
And to the Pulitzer Prize winner from City Bureau, Sarah Conway. Thank you so much for making time, my friend.
Jacoby, thank you for having us. And thank you for always having us on. We love CityCast. And happy Mother's Day to everybody.
One more thing before we wrap up. I got to give a huge thank you to all of the people who make CityCast Chicago possible, and a happy Mother's Day to all of their moms. Shout out to executive producer Simone Alisea, our producer Michelle Navarro. I hope you're enjoying your time in LA. Our newsletter editor is Sydney Madden. Our roving producers this week were Elizabeth Kama, Natalie Rivera, and Dylan Brogan. The music we all love is from All the Kimonos, Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop, and my boy Sam Thousand. Make sure you check out our website, chicago.citycast.fm. Subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, and be back here bright and early Monday morning when we're sitting down and talking to Mayor Brandon Johnson about his first year in office. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. We'll talk to you then. Peace.
Some good news.